Sonic Frontiers is not a game I had huge high hopes for. I was always waiting for a new Sonic game since a few years back, and I knew I would be getting this as soon as I could. But I can't say I was expecting any kind of masterpiece or high art or anything. After Sonic Forces was a pretty average game at best, and even the trailers for this looking empty, clunky and lackluster. Again, at best. And even after the pre-release response being quite an unhappy one, I really had low hopes. But like I said, I knew I would pick it up as soon as I could because, for better or for worse, this little blue bastard has a hold on me that I don't think I could shake if I tried. Something I realised recently, whether it's bad or good, average or just plain weird, there's nothing quite like playing a Sonic game. Nothing that has quite the same vibe, that has the same feeling to it. Which is why I think no matter how they look, or how they are received, when it comes to 3D Sonic games especially, I'm always going to be along for the ride. Spoiler alert, I usually start off these reviews with a question of how it holds up, or asking if it's as good as I would think it was, or whatever. But this time, I'm going to put it right out there from the beginning. I'm going to bat for Sonic this time, because this game has been one of my absolute favourite games of the year, and possibly my favourite Sonic game of all time. And it made me feel like an excited child again. So let's have a look at Sonic Frontiers. The story of this game, Sonic, Tails and Amy are flying around in the tornado, and they're sucked into like a cyber dimension. Sonic has weird powers that lets him move things with his mind, kind of, and seems to help him climb walls, etc. Eggman is stuck in a different part of cyberspace and trying to find his way out, and a mysterious voice tasks you with finding the Chaos Emeralds and destroying the giant titans throughout the island. There's also a mysterious human-looking kid that seems to work for Eggman, and she seems to be an enemy, but you can tell there's more going on. So the story, especially at the start, is really vague and not a focus, which I think is what Sonic does best. In a surprising way, there actually is some really nice and emotional moments in this bleak, destroyed, empty world. It's not afraid to slow down or be quiet for a little while, and just to let a moment sink in. I mean, seeing a Sonic game hold on a shot quietly for like 15 seconds is very, very appreciated and kind of precious.
I believe in that power. When this is over, I want to share that love with the world, even though it may take us far apart.
I know you'll do great. I want to hear all about it when you come back.
And I feel like the characters here are definitely at their best. It seems that the Amy Rose that just did nothing but chase and pine over Sonic while he ran away is gone. And it leads to some of the most beautiful, quiet, touching moments in the game. It almost makes me forget which franchise this is for a while. It actually makes me really love the communication and interactions between the two. I ship it. But like I said, in Sonic's strongest way of doing things, the story is more vague. The story isn't a massive focus. It's an appreciated element, but not an overdone one. There's also these mini rock creatures called Coco, who are like remnants of the souls of the world's previous inhabitants. And you generally deal with these two in kind of side quests and some in main quests, helping them find their lost true love, helping soldiers to come to closure, and things like that. And these will often have cutscenes showing off their previous forms and how they died. And some of these cutscenes are surprisingly intense and beautifully haunting, especially with the amazing music accompanying it.
Don't! It's too dangerous!
There's also cute little nods to previous games in the stories, which is really cool if you pick up on them. There was one occasion where it seemed kind of forced in as a reference, but the rest seem really natural and feel like you can just really just imagine him thinking about it at that moment. One that even made me laugh my fucking ass off for about 30 seconds.
What is your end goal?
It varies. Sometimes it's a spinning sign, sometimes it's a big old ring.
No.
And obviously I won't spoil late game things, but there's also some really cool bits of additional information and Sonic lore here for people who really care about that stuff. And the biggest switch up this time for Sonic is of course the open world. In 5 big open hub areas where you'll do missions and activities, fight enemies, unlock new traditional Sonic style levels, and unlock the Chaos Emeralds to progress along to the story. Fighting enemies will help you to get skill points to unlock new abilities as you progress. Along the way you'll also find your friends. 1 per area usually, where you have to collect enough memory tokens or heart tokens etc. to help them out while they're kind of stuck between dimensions. And of course it's your typical obvious characters, Tails, Amy, Knuckles. It's the same characters you know and love. Although some of their voices are a bit off. It's hard to explain. It's hard to explain. Like, it's not so much that it's overly obvious, but it's just a tiny bit off. Sonic sounds a little deeper. Amy sounds a little bit more over dramatic when she talks quietly. It's hard to explain or pinpoint precisely what it is. It just feels a tiny little bit weird and off. Now, maybe I'm alone in this, but I think Sonic 3D style gameplay transitioned into the open world surprisingly well. It's a ton of fun and somehow doesn't feel clunky. I never feel like I missed things because of bad design like I expected to. Even if the design of the world itself does seem a little bit scattered and random, it all flows really well without too much empty space. You can fast travel as well, but I never felt any desire to do this. Exploring and running around and platforming in this open world, in all of these open areas, was always a blast from start to finish. But there are little shortcuts you can unlock as you explore as well, like having a chain fall down instead of having to climb or platform, or having a spring that will help you get somewhere faster, which is definitely very appreciated, time saving and fun. Like I said, as you explore you'll do side missions to unlock more of the story and more of the map, and these involve a variety of fun activities such as getting to a spot in a limited time, standing on every glowing square without repeating them or going off track, climbing towers, or even little things like a Tetris minigame or a skipping rope, and so much more. And whenever you do one of these, it will unlock a little bit more of the map in a scattered random section at a time, which I do love the look of. The variety of these side missions keeps up throughout the entire game. Some you will love, some you will hate, but I definitely appreciate the variety, and for the most of them, they were either a ton of fun or just fun to explore how they worked. You'll also unlock gears by killing giant enemy mini-bosses to unlock more levels and stages, which unlock more keys and Chaos Emeralds, which unlocks more of the story. That's kind of the structure here. Each one of these traditional Sonic 2D style levels will have 4 keys to get. 1 for just completing the mission, 1 for beating it in the S rank time, 1 for collecting all of the red rings which are back, and 1 for finishing with a certain amount of rings. And while these levels have your typical one-hit kill homing attack style combat, in the open world sections you will have enemies that are fought in a more combo string hack and slash style, kind of like Sonic Unleashed but way faster. You have normal tapping button melee attacks, but like I said, you also unlock new combos and projectiles and power upgrades through the skill tree. And every world has different enemy types as well, which definitely helps to keep it all feel fresh. Surprisingly enough, I would say that these 2D side-scrolling stages are probably the lowest points of the game. None of them are bad, and some of them can be really cool and fun, but mostly I prefer the core open areas. Also, in between loading screens are these empty space tutorial sections. It'll show button commands on the screen to teach you commands and skills and combos. It's a really fun and non-intrusive way to teach you all this stuff and help you improve. And the second you're done and it's loaded, you can leave with the press of 1 button. It's one of my favourite ways I've ever seen to do this in any game. And even on my base PS4, the loading times were incredibly fast. Some levels you're back in before you even know you're dead. It's like playing a game on the NES with the speed of it. It's honestly way faster than I ever would have expected from this. Then there are the Guardians. These are like mini bosses that you fight through a certain amount of throughout the islands. And these can be the most intense, heart-pounding and fun parts of the game. They are stronger, more eventful enemies that you fight to gain gears for unlocking stages to get the keys from. And the fact that they're just there in the hub areas adds a lot to the enjoyment of them. Each area has their own unique epic guardians to fight with varying ways to defeat them. The Squid Titan battle might be one of my favourite boss battle designs in my long history of boss fights. Like possibly in the top 5. You run along a trail in the air left behind by it and dodge its attacks as you get closer in a genuinely impressive feat as it flies around the big open world. And it is honestly breathtaking. And every one of the areas has its own unique guardians. So the variety here is incredible, and it's always fun to find out which new ones each new world will offer. Some of my other favourites being the first one you fight and the tank. And this looks like a structure or a factory or something. No, this is just a fight. And it's just there for you to fight whenever you want. These things never stopped impressing me, and honestly, it's a bar for boss fights that I don't think is going to be reached again for a while. I can't think of any game that's done anything even close to this. There's also other activities like a fishing minigame, which I might be wrong, I'm pretty sure it's the first time it's ever happened in Sonic, and it's operated by the one and only Big the Cat. He will let you have one turn on his rod for exchange for a number of purple coins, depending on where you are. And you find these purple coins scattered around in the world. Then you will catch one fish, gain tokens based on your catch, which Big trades you items for. It's a weird little operation he runs. You can also catch non-fish such as rings, springs, scrolls for fast travel, and a tire, which Sonic looks way too happy about. It's nothing too fascinating, it's a one, sometimes two button push game, but it's a cute little distraction that can be surprisingly addicting. Other little collectibles are things like memory tokens, which are scattered around and help you to free your friends, and little cocoa, which are the stony inhabitants of the island that you pick up to upgrade your strength, your ring count, your speed, your defense, and some of these are actually hidden in really fun places, because the platforming and exploration in this game is really creative and nicely done. So it really makes exploring and finding these things feel really rewarding. And not like they're just put out of the way for no reason to waste your time. And with all of this stuff, it really did keep me in a constant state of, alright, just one more bit. Which is an impressive feeling for a Sonic game to give me for the entire game. But every world usually concludes in a giant, epic, Supersonic vs. Titan multi-phase boss battle. And holy shit were these a blast. The music, the giant amazing bosses, everything just made these an absolute joy to experience. Some of these songs even had multi-stage music to them, where it would change up at certain phases. And some of these songs are top tier for Sonic games. Easily some of the best, but we'll get to that in a while. I'm not going to show any except for the first one because it was shown in trailers, so it's fine. Because they truly deserve to be experienced fresh. But every time I saw one of these Titans, I was absolutely blown away by their design and scale. I think these will stick with me for a long time as some of the greatest boss fights in gaming history. Graphically it's pretty standard, not bad, but I can't say I'm blown away or anything. It's pretty much what you would expect from Sonic in that regard. And in design, it's the characters you know and love looking like themselves. Like I said, the Titans designs are really cool and even kind of intimidating. They really remind me of something and I can't quite tell what. Some parts almost give me the same vibes as the anime Bleach, especially this guy. And they were again not exactly graphically impressive, but the worlds are really nice looking. And again, I'm only going to show one or two because I don't want to spoil it. Again, half the fun of the game is exploring and finding these new locations. The giant areas all look distinct and interesting. I'd say the only minor complaint about this is that the pop-in can be pretty bad with platforms and environmental stuff, at least on PS4. I don't know how it holds up on other systems, but just the distinct open areas with all these titans and giants and guardians flying around. It was definitely a very pleasing game to look at, if nothing else. And one of the last things to talk about, something Sonic games are pretty well known for, is their music. And I think in most games it's mostly fine, but with a few standout tracks, like the Green Hill Zone in the first one, or the One More Last Fist Bump song from Forces. And it's similar here. A lot of it is okay or serviceable, but there are a few really standout, amazing pieces of music here. Like Undefeatable, the music that plays in the first giant Titan boss battle. I'm hanging on to the other side. I won't give up till the end of me. Do or Die from the second Titan. Can't hide from what you feel. Come on, no more compromise. This is do or die, and now you've crossed the line. You wake the beast inside. No more. The theme from the second open area. One of the tracks that plays in one of the first levels. And the theme that plays for the main villain of the game at one point is heart-wrenching. Some of these are really amazing, epic, and beautiful pieces of music. And it's always a huge part of the fun for a new Sonic title, especially the 3D ones, to find a few new music tracks that stand out above the others. And honestly, this might be my favourite so far in the music side. The quality and quantity is so high here. My only minor complaints would be stuff like the map not being checkable during combat, often with enemies out of sight so you have to find them or get out of their area of detection. The minigame where you hit the ball through a hoop can be clunky and the physics seem to make no sense to me. And a couple of occasions of not being able to leave a 2D section on the open world without escaping through the designated spot. Like I said, the pop-in and certain textures and platforms can be pretty bad. And it can be a bit too easy sometimes, like having a whole minute to do something that I did in like 20 seconds or 15 seconds to do 200 damage when you can do like 20 with one kick. I think a toddler could do it and it'd be fine sometimes, but most of them offer at least a decent challenge, even playing on normal. But honestly, there's nothing else that stands out to me, and they're all really minor things. And even the ones that could be pretty bad, they're very short-lived. So, overall, between a story that was fine and not overbearing, a really cool villain design, like honestly, I really hope they bring this character back for future games, because she is one of my favourite design characters in any game. Amazing boss fights which stood out beyond most video games. Forget Sonic games, most games in general. Fun and insanely addicting regular gameplays and combat. Fun and varied open worlds filled with rewarding and fun exploration. Some phenomenal pieces of music, and most complaints being minor things. And I guess some of the 2D stages for the most part are pretty average at best. I think I'm going to do a first for this channel, and something I might think I'm being overzealous with in the future, but I don't even care. The final verdict for Sonic Frontiers is a well-deserved 10 out of 10. You might think I'm crazy here, but this blew my expectations out of the water and made me more excited than I could have ever expected. I felt like a kid again with how excited and hyped I was while playing this. It's easily one of my favourite games of the year, maybe even at the very top of the Sonic franchise for me. I have to try Unleashed again to see how it holds up before I say for sure. Sonic team should be commended for this, and I hope they can keep this up, because it definitely is a high step above Forces in every conceivable way. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you don't think I'm out of my mind. It's just hard not to praise a game where I had a big goofy smile on my face for 90% of it. It really does feel like the culmination of 30 years of Sonic history. And I don't think I've had this much pure fun with a game in a long time. So please let me know what you thought. If anyone at all liked it as much as me. And let me know if you were a fan before this. Did it win you over after years of not liking the games? Did it ruin your love? I'm more interested in your answers for this than any game before. So once again, thank you for watching. And I'll see you for the next one. Goodbye.